Jake Sisko is growing Bajorn Keter pods to find out which hybrid yields the biggest root. Quark wants to sell collectibles like Andorian jewelry, Vulcan edict pins, and Bolian crystal steel. And Quark is allergic to nature. Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Seventh Rule with Cirroc Lofton.
Hello, hello.
We're also joined by two very special guests. It is a Nog episode, so very special welcome to Malissa Longo.
Hello.
And we're also joined by the director of this episode, which is Seasons 2, Episode 26, The Jem'Hadar. It's directed by Miss Kim Friedman. How are you?
Hi, I'm great. How are you?
Awesome.
Yeah, the season finale, actually. This is the last episode, right?
Yep.
Yeah, which I was very worried about because usually a season finale has a bigger bang story, a more violent story. And this, for the most part, was a kind of a very father-son. It started off very kind of naturalistic story. We were even in trees and nature, which is like very rare for a deep space episode.
Actually, we'll start at the beginning, but real quick, I did have a question about that. Was that an outdoor set with the trees and stuff?
No, it was a location, right? We were on location.
Okay.
We went outside, which was amazing. We were shocked by the sunlight because we always and suddenly we were in like real trees and leaves and dirt. Yeah.
Awesome. Because a lot of times it looks like it's outside, and then you just kind of like look a little bit more closely, and you're like, no, that's just a close up in a studio.
Well, there might have been some shots that we then did inside if there was a special effect or something, but maybe when the guys came, I don't know, when the Jem'Hadar came, I'm not sure. We might have done a few shots in studio, but we were out all day on location.
I have a question, Kim. I don't know if you're the one to answer this, but is the budget for this episode more than other episodes because it's a finale?
Yeah, well, I don't know if it was because it was a finale, but there was two reasons why it was a little bit higher budget. One was we went outside, and location is always more expensive than feeding everybody and then staying at the studio. But also, there were some special effects and stuff, but I think it was spread over 2 episodes because actually the next episode that you're showing next week, The Search Part 1, which was kind of the continuation of this episode, had a lot of special effects. And so I think what they did was split budget over the 2, and it was a little higher.
And you directed that one too.
Oh, yeah.
So let's get started on this bit by bit. We get everything that we've ever wanted in this episode because it opens up with Jake, and then it's Jake and his dad, and then it's Jake and Nog all day long. So awesome. This is all we want. And Cirroc, do you remember?
I just want to say, I think there were 2 things were terrific in this. The father-son relationship, which was one of my favorites, not just that I directed, but favorite scenes in a lot of Deep Space Nines between father and son. And also, my dear Nog, oh my God, he was so wonderful. And the scenes with you two they were wonderful. They directed themselves. They were wonderful.
Yeah, I enjoyed the dynamic of him and Quark, the 2 of them, and versus the father-son combination. I liked that a lot.
Yeah. And I mean, just like Nog and you also. It was wonderful.
This was a big episode for me, actually. I didn't realize I was in this episode that much. So when I started to watch it, I said, oh, wow, this is pretty much, a Jake and Nog episode.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And like Ryan says, we get so much in this episode. We get all the things that we've been kind of wanting.
Malissa, what did you think about 20 scenes with Jake and Nog together?
I loved it. I love this episode. I love it because it's a real relationships episode. There's different dynamics between the different relationships between Sisko and Quark and Nog and Jake and Nog and Sisko.
Right.
It's neat to see certain seeds being planted for future growth. So I love this episode for that reason. And Jake and Nog, I love that relationship.
Oh, that's wonderful. I did too. And I want to ask a question. This is because I'm coming new to this new to this, having not been around for years and years and years. Well, how did the fans like this episode? Was it too soft for them? Did they like a relationship episode, or did they want more action?
I can tell you this much, that the rating on IMDb is an 8.5, which is higher than the average rating. Usually it's around 7.5 or 7.9 or 8.
Right.
So it's definitely one of the higher ones. You know, myself as a fan, I remember liking it because, you know, it's got a good twist at the end. And because myself, I like episodes that give us couplings and triplets of people so that we can see what, you know, like a couple of weeks ago, we had a scene with Bashir and Kira, and we see for the first time Bashir's kind of trying to see if she's interested or whatever, and she smacks him down. But we get to see that dynamic. And then another time we have Bashir and Chief O'Brien together, and then we have Jake and Nog. And I love to see episodes that give us two people off, and or groups. You know, these two go there and these three go there. And we got that in spades. We got first the 4-person crew that we all loved, right? Such a great 4-person crew that we haven't seen yet together. But then later on, then they even split up, and it's 2 and 2. And then we also have the 2 runabouts going out with 2 and 3. So everybody's split up. Everybody's got their little relationships and storylines going. So, I mean, I love that stuff.
Right. I was curious.
What else I liked about the story is the performance of the guy who played the Jem'Hadar in this episode. I thought he made a really worthy adversary. Like, his presence was felt, and the threat, the eminence of threat was all over the place. And the other thing that I liked was the woman who played this the founder,
Eris.
Eris, right? I liked her in this as well because she had a very mysterious role to play, and she was very good at playing off of Quark and playing off of Sisko.
So here's some really cool nerdy stuff about her. She also played Alara Kitan's mother and Robert Picardo's wife in an episode of The Orville, when Alara's final episode, when she goes and visits her family. So it was Bob Picardo and her. I can't remember her name offhand. But yeah, so she's definitely a sci-fi veteran.
You know what I think is
Molly
funny
Hagan,
too?
that's her name, Molly Hagan. Sorry.
I think it's
right.
I think it's hello, I'm here. I'm still here.
Okay. Yeah. Earthquake. Okay.
It does that every once in a while.
Right.
No, I thought it was funny that Nog had such a different role from what we're used to. Like, it's the complete opposite of what we end up seeing as the Captain Nog, who's confident and kind of knows his way around the ship. In this one, we see a guy who's like scared and like doesn't know, up from down. So
well, we did get a little taste of him though, because the first thing he says when he walks on the runabout was, "How do you fire the phasers?"
Right.
Hey, he's ready.
Right.
Yeah. Well, and I also love that it shows his upbringing up to that point, with Quark being the head of the family and in charge and telling him what to do. But then you could see he kind of looks up to Sisko when he's talking. When Sisko talks to him, he's like,
Jesus.
"Yes, Commander." And then he gets embarrassed when Quark does his Quark stuff. He doesn't want to be embarrassed in front of Captain Sisko or Commander Sisko at the moment.
You're right. You're right. I mean, those seeds are definitely planted there, where he's a little curious about the ship. He's a little embarrassed about Quark. He starts to look up to Commander Sisko. He's got an adventure going on with Jake. I mean, there's definitely, you could see that those seeds were planted far back.
Yeah. Well, and his curiosity and his desire to learn is evident to me as well. So.
Right. I wanted to say something just so it's just not I don't want to embarrass anybody here, but I also felt that the acting for you two guys, oh my God, for Jake and Nog was above and beyond. I mean, I just thought you just off you home run, whatever you say, out of the park.
Touchdown.
The relationship was great, but also you were suddenly we weren't in Deep Space Nine, and we could see the humanity in these characters. In other words, we weren't on a spaceship. We could be anywhere. These were two kids, kind of, being kids, and also from a director's point of view, thank God, not overacting, not being like Disney child actors. And Cirroc is a wonderful actor.
Thank you.
And I'm encouraging him to act again. Because he's a really actor, and I don't want that to be the last of, that I see him on screen. Nog and Jake were just, it was incredible. And I also love both of their individual relationships with the captain, with Sisko. I thought it was wonderful. And kudos to actors playing young roles and not overacting and being wonderful.
Real quick, when you mentioned that, a little bit more on Cirroc, because he's not going to get away that easily with just like 2 compliments. But she was also complimenting him before we were recording, everybody at home. So just know he's got it coming. But also what I heard was that Cirroc was quite the troublemaker while you weren't shooting. Is that true?
No, I'm a little bit of a troublemaker too. So troublemakers are us. Maybe I didn't really notice.
No, I'm just kidding.
I have to tell you something. He was delightful to work with, and again, I was so heartened by the fact of working with young actors that were natural, just had it, could act the relationship, and weren't kind of overdoing it with child actors as they do. And again, I'm going to say it again and embarrass you, Cirroc, get back to acting. Okay?
I will.
As soon as this pandemic is settled down and we're on sets again and everything, I expect to see you acting again.
I will.
Because you're wonderful.
Thank you, Kim. I appreciate
You're welcome.
it. Yeah, it was a lot of fun watching this episode, especially because we had so much interaction with Sisko. And I really enjoyed the moment where Sisko and Jake were bonding at the campsite.
Yeah.
And they just had that moment where he mentions my mom who passed away in the pilot episode. And it was kind of them talking about that again. I know that's part of the grieving process. And I enjoyed that moment. I think Sisko said something like, I think we need to take more vacations together. And Jake says, I'm ready anytime. And I'm sure Nog is too.
Yes.
Yeah.
And just that little rip right there was like a good moment between us.
You also brought out something wonderful in Sisko, in the captain, in his acting, because not by lack of talent, he's a brilliant actor, but he was often given what I call Shakespeare in space. These long monologues that were like, he was doing Hamlet soliloquies only with science fiction terms that actually weren't real, but created by Ira and created by the writers. And here, because of the relationship with you two, he got a chance to really show his acting chops as just a wonderful, naturalistic, can do anything actor. So I thought that was great too, that relationship gave him the opportunity to not be the quote captain, with the big monologues, which is great.
This time it was actually Jake Sisko that had the crazy line. When the first line, he says, I'm growing Bajoran caterpods to find out which hybrid yields the biggest root. I'm like, how do you deliver that naturally? There's no way to do it. I was reading it and I couldn't do it.
Shakespeare in space. I am telling you, they were writing Shakespeare in space and you just had to commit that you knew what they were. Yeah.
Yeah, those kinds of things are very difficult, especially the technical stuff. Those kinds of
the technical jargon was just so hard for the actors. Here they're trying to act and have relationships and look into each other's eyes and commit to the scene and the characters, and they're saying words that some of them technically are totally made up, totally fantasy words. No one really knows what they mean, but yet they have to give them meaning. So.
You must have had your hands full in this episode, Kim, because one of the things that I wrote down in my notes here was how many different sets there were. So we had the runabouts, we had the shuttle, we had the cave. can you get into like how many different locations and places?
I don't remember how many. All I know is it was driving us all crazy. And when we prepped the episode, when we prepared for the episode, it was we used to have boards, a real board. They still have real boards, but they also do it on computer now as well. Making up the schedule was one of the hardest parts of prep, how to fit all these scenes in and the actor schedules. And we were going between set after set after set. And I remember prepping for the episode, having to run to many different sets on different stages. And I was kind of losing track of, wait, this scene is here, this scene is there. So yeah, there were, for Deep Space Nine, there were a lot of locations. But actually, it was also interesting for me to see the crew outside, because even though they're all very good and very experienced, they hadn't gotten out much. Suddenly they were in an outside location, and I was watching them thinking, this is interesting. But yes, there were a lot of sets and a lot of cockpits and a lot of screens and a lot of thanks for the special effects people. Because as a director, you're running in, you're trying to get the scene, you're trying to get it on time, you're trying to get it good, you're trying to concentrate on the acting. And meanwhile, what's outside? What are they looking at? Where are they looking? What are they looking at? Is the ship shaking? Is it not shaking? Is the stars outside? Is a spaceship coming through? So the special effects people and the visual effects people really stuck by me and the crew during both the shoot of Jem'Hadar and the next one next week, The Search. Because,
go
ahead, Cirroc.
No, go ahead, Cirroc.
Well, my question for you, Kim, was did Ira or any of the writers sit down with you beforehand and say, okay, this is who the Jem'Hadar are going to be, and this is how essential they are to the storyline going forward?
Yeah. I mean, I can't speak for other directors, but I thought a wonderful relationship with the writers. And I assume they do with all the directors. And so we talked a lot about where the story was going to be going, who these people were as real people. And as you said, the man who played the Jem'Hadar, the main guy, it's hard playing through a face full of prosthetics. It is really hard to act. And Armin did it. Odo, oh my God. Right. Mm-hmm. Look at his eyes. What you do is look at his eyes and you want to cry. Your heart breaks. Same with Nog, okay? Really hard to go through those prosthetics. So it was important for me to know, so I could direct who these Jem'Hadar were going to be, what they were made of, what they were like, so that they were real people, not just people in a funny mask, because the special effects can sometimes play you, and you want the actor to come through. You don't want it to be about the mask and the ears and the head, et cetera, et cetera.
Right, because this was the very first time we're seeing the Jem'Hadar, so there's kind of like that pressure to establish their style and their type, and same thing with the Vorta, Eris.
Yeah. We had, to your point, the writers were very particular in, besides just the scenes, talking about scenes and acting, talking about the backstories and the history to come of all the characters, new, old ones that reappear. It was an ongoing discussion and a lot during prep.
Two quick things. One was that when you mentioned cockpits earlier, you said there's so many different cockpits. It reminded me that there was something I wanted to point out very quickly, which was the tiny little shot of the bridge of the Odyssey, right? And really, it just kept cutting at that same shot or that same angle. And we would see the captain and the commander, and you had a couple background actors in blue and in gold. I'm like, boy, you really did a lot with very little in that one little angle, because you're probably pressed for time and pressed for locations. They're like, okay, we could give you this little nugget of a set real quick.
We couldn't make a huge new set for already the Deep Space Nine set is so gorgeous. So we're sometimes like two walls, like the two walls and just blank space, and you imagine they're going to put in stars or something outside. And you just have to use your imagination and try to.
It worked great. It worked
except in one shot, which we'll talk about later.
Oh, yeah. So stay tuned for that, because we're going to take a break in a few minutes.
She's great.
But also, Malissa and I, for those of you that are just listening and not watching, we both chose backgrounds of Jake and Nog looking scared or surprised or something like that, because there are so many good moments between the two of them. And I wanted to ask Malissa, what was your favorite of the scenes between the two of them. And did you notice anything this time that you hadn't noticed before?
When we come back or right now?
Right now.
Okay.
Are we just teasing everything? They just tease.
Yes.
No, we have a few minutes.
No, I love the scenes on the runabout between Jake and Nog and them trying to figure out how to take the autopilot out or so that they can get back to the station. And then when the Jem'Hadar ship comes off of the planet and Nog's like, fire phasers!
That's right.
What's the torpedoes?
Yeah. Evacuation
Evasive maneuvers. It's hilarious. And
see, he was already learning right there.
Yeah. And how much he grabbed onto Jake, and Jake was his rock, and so he was like, Jake's the safety net here because he's got the answers and his father's the
good thing I studied with Chief O'Brien,
right?
For one episode.
Right.
That one episode with O'Brien really paid off.
Yeah.
Can I ask everyone to look for the bad shot of mine?
Oh, that is a good.
Yes, the worst shot I have ever made, probably in the history of television, but certainly in my history, is in this episode.
See, because when I was watching, I saw maybe a dozen bad shots.
Oh,
so
wow.
I'm just kidding. I didn't know. I didn't know. I can't narrow it down. No.
Sorry, Tim. He can't help himself.
The one that tops them all. You'll see it.
There were too many compliments. It hurts.
I didn't. Honestly, the story was moving along so quickly that I didn't see any bad shots in my opinion.
If you watch for it this time, I think you're all going to be able to see where the bad shot is.
Well, I didn't notice it either.
And it's collective, by the way. It's bad on everyone's part. The director's part, the camera part, the actor's part, in a funny way. You'll see.
Give us a hint.
I would guess, though, it has to be, I would guess that it was during a scene when there's movement on the camera or somebody's getting hit with a photon or something.
Yes.
That's my guess, because usually that's where the most complications can happen.
And it can be really tough with the actor. There'll be four actors going like this and one way. Yeah.
And I was promised that don't worry about it. We'll take care of it in post. We'll put special effects on. Well, they didn't, so you'll all see it.
Oh, great. Well, now I really got to hear about it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're about to hit that first break, but I will also say that there's another thing I really wanted to jump into as a nerd, which was the actor that played Captain Keogh is like TV and voiceover royalty.
Right.
For the Alan Oppenheimer. So for those of you that, unbelievable, but we'll talk about that in just a minute. And then we'll also hit those quick trivioids that we missed. I mean, there's so much. We're probably going to go for 7 hours today. Cirroc's like, you'll be doing it alone.
Yeah. You and Captain EO.
Yeah. All right. So we'll be right back on The Seventh Rule. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to The Seventh Rule with Cirroc, Lofton, Malissa Longo, and Kim Friedman, director of this episode, which is episode 26 of season 2, the season finale, called Jem'Hadar, or The Jem'Hadar. Very quickly, I'm going to run through these trivioids so fast because we have too many things to talk about. Jake Ketter Pods, we did that one. Quark wants to sell collectibles, we did that one. Quark is allergic, did that one. Nog wants to test out the runabout's phasers. Ferengi only like eating Ferengi bugs. Remember, he said we only like specific bugs. Ferengi bugs. Don't get it twisted. And Avorta shows up and blasts Sisko with her mind.
Yeah.
That's all I got.
You can.
One thing you haven't brought up in this episode, there was quite a lot about racial stuff between.
Yes.
Quark mentioned it.
Yes, and Ferengi. A lot about, there's one particular scene which is, there's a lot.
Right. I mean, well, those first when Sisko has the misconception about, oh, don't you like all bugs? And he's like, hey, we only like specific bugs,
Right.
don't you know? But
Right.
then there was also when later on when Quark is saying, hey, we're nothing like you. We didn't do slavery. We didn't do
Right.
concentration camps. Like we just
right,
want
yeah.
money. Yeah, you're right.
Right.
Back in Sisko, and it was a really interesting thing to have an African American man, a Ferengi, another outsider, so to speak, and then having this conversation. I thought it was quite bold, actually.
Yeah, that was layered inside of the subtext in this script, and it wasn't the highlight of it, but it
No.
was definitely something where they picked up on something they had talked about kind of earlier in the show, and that was when Nog and Jake first started to become friends.
Right.
And Sisko was like, "I don't want you hanging around those Ferengi people." So he actually originally showed some kind of level of animosity against the Ferengi.
Prejudice. Yeah.
Prejudice. Yeah, absolutely. And I think Quark does a really good job at showing that Sisko has his prejudice against Ferengi, and it's just as bad as any other prejudice against any other person. I think that was a pretty good job of that.
Good point. Good job.
Deep Space Nine never shied away from it. I think they tackled it the best out of any of the Star Treks, honestly. Like in Duet, Malissa, I'm sure you remember Duet because that was Kira's big moment.
Yeah.
But Duet, they really tackled it so well. And the episode with the man in the box, I can't remember what the episode was called. But
Right.
Yeah, where Sisko goes in the cage. Yeah.
Right.
And that the line that Quark gave, he says, "You talk about tolerance and understanding, but it's only for people who remind you of yourselves."
Right.
And that was like the hit one. You kind of hit deep with that one.
Right.
And then you got a really light moment, which I thought was great, where Quark saves Sisko's life essentially.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. It was a really brief exchange. It was a small moment, but he says thank you.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And
then Quark right then should have said, "So about those sales."
Can I use the monitors, please?
Yeah. And was Quark stealing something off of the dead Jem'Hadar? Because it looked like he was putting something in his pocket, like just before he.
Yeah, it did.
Right?
Maybe that was
the lock.
Exactly, Melissa. Yeah.
Okay.
The lock on her neck.
That's what he was taking.
Yeah.
Because I was saying, well, who has time to run through some Jem'Hadar's pockets?
Quark.
Wait a minute, there might be some Latinum here.
I'll catch up.
Yeah.
You're right, though, Kim. One last observation about what you mentioned was when Quark first comes onto the runabout, and he's like, "Oh, my brother doesn't trust, Nog, with you guys. I need to watch over him just in case." And Sisko's like, "He'll be fine, dude."
Yeah. Some things never change,
I like seeing Sisko in his regular clothes too, outside of the. I liked my outfit too, so I really liked that particular outfit I was wearing with the belt.
We're getting better for you.
And the brown and the red, I liked it. So, and then having Sisko kind of matching, it was a cool little camping outfit, Star Trek camping outfit.
So, are you guys ready to hear about Alan Oppenheimer?
Yeah.
So, Alan Oppenheimer, I've heard his name throughout because I love the 80s cartoons. But one of our associate producers messaged me yesterday about it, and she even brought up a character that I didn't even know, and I thought I was like a cartoon nerd. So Alan Oppenheimer has done so much voiceover for cartoons, like especially He-Man, one of the coolest things of all time. He did the voice of Skeletor. He did the voice of Man-at-Arms, of Cringer and Battle Cat, and he also did a bunch of Transformers like Beachcomber and Sea Spray. And the one I didn't know that Anne-Marie mentioned was he also did Vanity Smurf. I was like, no way. That's so different for him.
Wow.
But if you watch the episode, listening for that, he does sound like Man-at-Arms a lot of times. And in the battle, when he's like, shields up, he sounds like Battle Cat. He's like, shields up. And I was like, hey, Battle Cat. That was really cool.
That's great.
I felt like as soon as I saw him, I was like, this guy's going to die. This episode is not going to
yeah.
He was also Voyager and Next Generation.
In Star Trek, the character that's going to die. You're like, I think he's not going to make it to the end.
Whenever the older captain came on, almost on any Star Trek, you knew they were dead. They were going to get blown up. They're the one that's going to die. You knew that was it. It's one time. Maybe they have a two episode arc, but they are going to die. They will die.
Captain Deadmeat shows up.
Captain Dead, yes.
And I thought it was cool that he was actually on the USS Odyssey,
right?
Which is our hosting station here,
our radio network, right?
That's our radio
Odyssey
network.
Radio.
So yeah,
good catch.
Little shout out to the Odyssey,
which died too.
And you know what? I also noticed that in this episode, Nog is a lot more like his dad, Rom. Mm-hmm. He's more subservient. Hey, Nog, go get me the ointment. And he's like, yes, okay. Mm-hmm. Okay, Uncle. And it's kind of like how Rom would have done it, right? Mm-hmm. And you get to see, so this really lets me know the kind of arc that Nog takes as a character, because he starts from this place of like, being unsure of himself and not knowing his way around the bridge or the little shuttlecraft. Yeah. To being a captain and to being sure of himself and not being anything like his dad eventually, right? And assertive and self-confident. So I really like the way his character is now going to start to arc in this direction and change.
Yeah, I like seeing how it subtly changes, and you see the influences of environment and the relationships you have with certain people shape your character and the direction your life goes. And I think it's very evident with Nog's character, nature versus nurture, and how they kind of go hand in hand with each other. And Nog's character is written beautifully in that. We can see that so well.
Yeah, he also made a change from the first season to the second season, which was in the first season, he was mostly just this rascal getting into trouble. Now in the second season, he's softened up a little bit to where it's less about getting into trouble and more about, it seems like, finding himself. Like, where, what am I doing? Where am I going? Am I going to stay in school or am I not? As Jake said, he said, look, if he doesn't do well, he's just going to quit. And he's a kid, but he's working at his uncle's bar, he's doing all this stuff. So he's already made a change. It's kind of like he was going down and he's kind of right here and he's about to do the upswing starting in the third season.
Yeah. And I think that Jake showed a lot of maturity because he was really concerned about his friend graduating. Right. And we saw Jake concerned about him learning how to read. We see him now concerned about him doing well on his science project and getting a passing grade. So we see that Jake is this guy, really concerned about his friends. And when somebody's his friend, he wants to make sure that, he does everything that he can for them.
Mm-hmm. Well, he doesn't want to get stuck in school with just Molly all day. He's like, she's 4. What am I going to do?
Yeah, you're the only guy I could talk to. But, every time I watched this, when I was watching this episode, every time Nog squealed, because he squealed a lot in this episode. We have to get a soundbite of his squeal.
And he hissed. He hissed at his uncle.
Yes.
Yeah, we got to get a soundbite of that squeal and play it every once in a while because it's a classic squeal. It made me think of him exactly. Like I just thought of him because that's his move.
Until we do, Cirroc, do you think you could just do the squeal for us?
Yeah, I had a lot of fun working with you, Kim, and you were always very gracious. You work very well with the other actors. I know, I don't know if people tell you that, but that was my experience. And
thank you.
You've left an impression over all of these years, the moments that we did spend together. Like I said, Yeah, I just remember how well you talked with people. You were concerned. You were compassionate and cared about the work, and you also cared about communicating with the actors and the set and the crew, and making sure that that everybody was on the same page. So I really commend you for doing a fantastic job and being a leader on the set when you were there.
Well, thank you. But I had wonderful tools to work with, mainly the actors. I mean, great cast. You, of course, and everybody. As I said last week, this is an amazing group of actors. I mean, where do you get Renee Auberjonois? I mean, my God, Renee, what an incredible actor. You have Nana Visitor, who's just, insane. I mean, I could say Column. I mean, everyone, Sadig. I mean, everybody was just sort of beyond the normal ensemble cast. Let's put it that way. I work with a lot of ensemble casts, and there are always some really good people and some really kind of mediocre people. But I have to tell you,
which were the most mediocre? No, I'm just kidding. Don't answer that.
No, but I was going to say in Deep Space Nine, no. Deep Space Nine was one of the few ensemble casts where everyone hit it out of the park. They were all really consummate actors, so it made my job a lot easier. And by the way, last week I talked about a scene where a cameraman didn't want to do it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I realized it's in the next episode next week in The Search.
Oh, really? So stay tuned for that. Oh, and also tell us what was your least favorite scene in this one? Yeah. You've teased us too long.
Your least favorite of all time, you said.
Okay.
Of all time.
I can't even remember. It's Nana Visitor, and who is she with in the
Odo? Oh no, she's with Julian Bashir. She's with Sadig.
All I know is there's a shot from I hope this is this episode and not the next one. It's a shot from the back of them, and they're supposed to be rocking in the thing, and they had no room to really kind of rock. And so I said, well, just lean. And visual effects said, yeah, don't worry, we'll put lots of stuff in afterwards. So all of a sudden, they both go like this. And it's so awkward. I mean, like being besieged by enemy, and they go like this. To lean to the left, lean to the right, and it's from behind. Now, right after that, yes, visual and special effects put in some bursts of, like light and stuff, but oh my God, I wish they had done it throughout. So I never got fooled after that. I say, oh, don't worry, we'll fix it in post. No, this wasn't feasible. This was two actors going like this, to the left and to the right, and it wasn't their fault. I told them to do that. So, all on me. My least favorite scene I have ever visually directed. There you go.
Yeah, we'll fix it in post. Yeah. Should always be ended with hopefully. Theoretically.
Hopefully.
Said, we gotta go. And I knew at the time, I said, this looks terrible. We gotta go. We gotta move to the next set. We have 1 million scenes in the show. Okay, we're gonna move and you're gonna help me on this in post. Yeah, well, I never got fooled again. Learned my lesson.
Yeah.
And then everyone watches, just watching them, they lean together to the left. It's like a dance. It's like they're doing a dance. They lean to the left, and they lean to the right. It's what everyone does being attacked, right? By an enemy.
Yeah. Now, I remember, though, the first time I got instructions about having to act during getting hit with, photons. Right. And it is something that everybody kind of has to be on the same page. You're getting hit from the right, you're getting hit from the left. Because otherwise, everybody's falling down different ways. It looks like it's like bowling pins, and it doesn't look coordinated. It doesn't look like it's actually happening. So, yeah, there is a little bit of magic that comes.
And part of the magic should be in taking the camera off the dolly and doing it handheld, which is what I did later in this episode and in the next episode, because it's very hard to put it all on the actor to shake, at the right way. Having that camera move a little bit gives you a little leeway. So yeah,
absolutely.
So,
you know who really gets that? Our buddy, Mr. Tim Russ. Probably because he had 7 years of it, but in Star Trek Voyager. Yes. But on the set of Renegades with Aron Eisenberg and Melissa will recall that Aron was like, I got to wear another mask. And we're like, maybe you don't have to, just check it out. And then we put it on. And he was like, this is really cool, man. And like, he loved it. And he nailed that role. But there was there was Korn Nemec, and there was also Hannah Hate, and there was Madison Russ, and the five of us were on the bridge of the ship, and Tim would just he would just say, "Okay, ready." And shake, and he would say it so loud that we would react to it. But he really got the lingo. He really got the leans, and it's because he had 7 years of it.
I really liked him, by the way.
Really?
Voyagers. Yeah, I really liked him. Yeah.
Malissa, cool. Do you remember that pretty well?
I remember
right?
that. Yeah. I was on the side. And Aron was like, "Did that work? Did I do it okay?" But yeah, I remember that.
Oh, good old days.
Shake. Yeah.
The shake.
He was definitely doing the am I doing the same voice as I was before? That's why when Cirroc mentioned that he used to always do that, I was like, I remember him doing that on Renegades. That's his thing.
That's his
thing. So Melissa probably got it all day.
Is. Yeah. And are you sure that doesn't sound like Nog? No, it doesn't. I promise.
Totally different.
Yeah.
He even changed the mannerisms. He added this thing that I thought was a really great idea, was when he would ask a question, he would kind of add a head tilt, or he would say are phasers armed, or he would do these things, and to deliberately distance himself from Nog. Totally different alien, creating something new, and not just with the voice, but with the physicality. He wanted to create something totally different.
Yeah.
There were a few lines that I really enjoyed in this one. One of them was when Quark said about Nog that I raised my nephew right. He'll find the deepest hole and crawl into it. It's like cowardice is part of their cultural belief system.
Survival.
It's a survival. Even when the Jem'Hadar first walked into the cave, Quark runs behind Sisko and hides behind him, you first. And the other thing is when we were looking at them from far away, when Jake and Nog were looking at the Jem'Hadar from far away, and Jake says, "I think we should get up closer." And Nog is like, "I don't think they'll look any better from any closer."
Yes, right.
That was great. Yeah.
I think this is good enough right here.
In fact, we might be able to see him better from farther away, maybe. Yeah. We should try that.
Yeah, and there was another thing, too. I enjoyed the fact that the Jem'Hadar were kind of looking for an adversary that was worthy of their might, right?
Yes.
Right.
I think he says I was a little disappointed that the first person I met wasn't a Klingon or.
Oh. Yeah, he was desperate. He was dying to meet a Klingon. It was like this. He saw gosh, if I have got the Federation, I want a Klingon.
Yeah, I want to fight. I want to see somebody who knows how to fight, because I want to test my skills up against the best.
Right, or the consolation prize. He's like, or at least a Cardassian.
I really liked his performance. Who was this actor who played the Jem'Hadar? Ryan. I think Ryan.
Well,
look it up.
Based on my memory, no, I'm just kidding. I'm looking up Cress Williams. I don't know.
Cress Williams. Yeah, I thought he did a really good job.
He did.
Mm-hmm. He was born in Germany.
Okay.
Huh.
He was in Black Lightning, DC's Legends of Tomorrow, Code Black, lots and lots of acting. That was Friday Night Lights. He played Ornette Howard in Friday Night Lights. Quite a few episodes there. Prison Break, Grey's Anatomy, ER, Close to Home.
I really liked that. There was a dig, too, that he gave to Nana. I thought it was just an awesome moment. And that's when he said to her, "You should be proud. The Bajorans, I heard, put up a really good fight for a spiritual people."
Yeah.
Right.
And it's just such a low blow.
That was something I'm glad you brought that up, because remember, we were talking a few episodes ago about how there was one little nugget, in one little line, they mentioned the new Bajoran colony in the Gamma Quadrant. And we were like, that sounds like a very vulnerable place for a new colony to pop up. And 2 weeks later, they planted that seed a couple weeks ago, and then they bring it back in this one. Always great serialized writing there.
Right. And that's why when you asked the question before, did the writers talk to me and other directors? Yes, because I could be gone for 2 months working on another show, and then I come back. And besides just watching the episodes, it's very helpful for the writers to point out these little things that they slip in that you think, oh, it's just a line, but no, it's not a line. It's projecting what's to come and what you're about to direct. So it was very important for the writers to really go over the whole Bible. We call it Bible, the whole where the series was going, where the characters were going on each episode, because you never know. One little line in an episode, if you don't get it right, could mean, oh no, we're not set up for 2 episodes down the line. So yes, the writers talk to us ad infinitum and for good measure about what was going to happen to the characters, why, and also don't forget, again, we have to remember these are made up aliens. So I come on the show and there's suddenly a new alien. I know nothing about this alien, right?
Right.
I have to get like a character rundown. I have to get the history of the people, what the characters are like. How am I going to direct an actor if, this is an alien that's new to the Star Trek world and just new to the world in general. So it was very important, the collaboration with the writers.
Do you remember anything in specific that they told you about the Jem'Hadar or the Vorta?
No,
I know it's 25 years ago.
Yeah, no, I don't. But I'll be honest with you, I don't. However, I do know this, that something about, this is going to sound really stupid and silly, but words matter and names matter. And something about the name Jem'Hadar, I loved it right from the beginning. I can't describe why I liked it. There was just something about the word, the actual sound of the words, the Jem'Hadar. It was threatening. It was, they're coming. It was present. I can't explain it, but that really attracted me right from the beginning, the name that they gave it. And they didn't do things lightly, by the way. I mean, the writers just didn't go sit around with cigars and, oh, we'll call these the Boogaloo, and we'll call these the Jem'Hadar.
Right.
The Jem'Hadar was supposed to sound scary, and it was. And it was.
It was. What's the amount of time before the episode starts that you begin your prep work and start working on the episode?
Now, that's very interesting. Supposedly, the Directors Guild changes this every year. In those days, it was, I think, I want to say 6 or 7 day prep, but you couldn't do Deep Space Nine like that. There was no way. There are other episodes of television you could walk in and you could do with just a 6 day prep. So what I would do is, maybe I was working on another show and then I was editing that show. I would come over early on and beg the writers to give me an advanced script, which they didn't want to do. But I nagged them and nagged them and nagged them. And finally they would give me, because they knew they were going to change a lot of it because they're constantly rewriting. Now, I would say I was always 2 weeks before begging, nagging Ira, nagging Rick to give me even a first draft of a script, just so I could begin to visualize and think, begin to start thinking of things. And then in terms of the actual prep, it was never 7 days for me. I mean, I always did at least 10 days. I would just come in myself. I would be looking at sets as they were being built. I would, it wasn't official prep for the contract and stuff, but I would say 10 days before, and before that I would be arguing with all the writers to give me a first draft, even though I knew it was going to change. They just said, but it's going to change. I know it's going to change, just so I could start visualizing. The prep on Deep Space Nine was very intense because, again, you have Shakespeare in space. So it's not like an action show where they're saying, stop or I'll shoot, or you're under arrest. These long soliloquies. So you, as a director, you have to prep the monologues, the acting, the beats, the actual beats and the acting. But then Deep Space Nine, of course, is like also Star Wars in space, so you've got special effects, you've got visual effects, you've got fight scenes, you've got this. A lot of prep work goes into that. So there were constant meetings with the visual effects people, with the, everybody, visual effects, with special effects, with fight coordinators going over the fight. I would always meet with the stunt coordinators and figure out where we were going to do certain things and show them what I was planning, and they would show me something. I'd say, oh, great, I'll make the shot over here. So it was constant meetings. I would say the prep on Deep Space Nine, not only was it, say, 10 days or 8 days or 9 days, it was long hours because you had so many things besides the acting and the actual shots, which, took forever, and planning your shots and planning the actors, blocking and moves. Had a lot of extras, visual effects, fight scenes, special effects. And as I told you last weekend, I would always come in on the weekends to block my shots when no one was there, because during the week, frankly, I was too busy with meeting with the producers, with the writers. Also, I'd meet with the writers and say, I'm never going to be able to shoot this scene in time. I mean, if you really want this scene, you have to make some of the other scenes less fight intensive or effects intensive, or if you want the scene, you've got to make it shorter, because there are certain things that I would read and I go, this sounds great, but I only have 8 days to shoot this in. We're not going to be able to fit it in. So those meetings, the meetings with the crew and location scouting, took up all day. So I would wind up going on the weekends to actually block shots. It's a long-winded answer to your question.
That was great. So we've got about 1 minute left here. Before we go, I almost forgot something. We had another NAM today. Kim, the NAMs are non-appearance mentions. And a lot of times, Jake and Nog get a lot of NAMs. But Malissa, did you catch the NAM today? She's like, you didn't tell me you were going to put me on the spot.
No, I didn't.
Cirroc?
I saw two NAMs that I can think of. One was Rom.
Correct. That's the one.
Right.
Did I miss one? What's the other one?
Keiko.
Did they mention that? I was wondering if
they mention Keiko?
I know they mentioned Mrs. O'Brien.
They mentioned school, but did they actually mention
Mrs.
Keiko?
O'Brien said Nog could do the report with me.
Okay.
The student
she had to be
the teacher.
Yeah. Keiko, and then also Jennifer Sisko.
Right.
Jake's
mom.
We
got to add another one for her. You're right. I hadn't thought of her.
She's also mentioned. But I want the people out there to know that how intensive the work is. That's why I'm bringing up the preparation, Kim, for the audience out there that's listening.
So intense.
The director is on the set, from the beginning of the day's work till the end of the day's work. And those of us that are acting are able to take breaks periodically throughout the day. Scenes that we're not in, so we get breaks, but the director doesn't get any breaks, and they have to be ready again for the next morning, to be prepared for whatever's going to happen.
I tell you a very funny story. Okay, I might have mentioned this last week. I'm not sure. We had long hours sometimes on Friday nights because there's a union rule that you can go later on Friday night because there doesn't have to be a turnaround for the crew, meaning they don't have to have a certain amount of hours of rest, and for the actors. Yep. And we would shoot along. I mean, I would usually come to if our call was 7 o'clock in the morning, I would always get there around 5:30 or 6. So I could make sure the sets were exactly how I wanted them. Sometimes I would change some of the set pieces that could move so it would, go with my shots. Also, sometimes I'd want to talk to an actor who was in makeup about a scene. Poor Odo was there at 3 in the morning. Renee was, always there when I got there at 5:30 in the morning. And, we would work sometimes very late at night. So I would be there always from 5:30 in the morning till at least 7, sometimes till 8. But on Friday nights, it could go very, very, very late. And one Friday night, we were going very late. And I remember begging the producers, can we just stop? Can we just do this on Monday? Usually the director's begging for more time. I was saying, I think we got to stop. People can't even see. The camera operator is like going blue-eyed. Finally, we called it a wrap, and we're walking out. I think I did mention this, but I'll mention it again. And we're walking out at Paramount. We're just walking out of the studio, and there's nobody there. It's the middle of the night. I think it was probably 1 in the morning or something. And as we're walking out, some lonely writer somewhere in one of the writers' building leans over and says, it's the Deep Space Nine crew. Thank you for shopping at Paramount Pictures. We were leaving the Paramount studio. We were the only ones there, but this poor lonely writer up somewhere writing a movie or something. And he recognized that the Deep Space Nine people were always there the longest and coming in the earliest. Also, another one. One time, I was leaving late at night. We had stopped shooting at 7 or 8, and I had some meetings and some rehearsals with special effects people that we knew we were going to do at night after we were done shooting for the next day. We were there very late. I'm leaving the studio, and I think it was Rene Auberjonois-Otto at 2 or 3 in the morning. Is coming in. He's coming in to get makeup on.
Oh, no.
Insane. It was insane. Yeah. So,
wow.
But loved every minute of it. Loved every minute of it.
We're just about out of time here. Kim, thank you so much for joining us and for telling us all these fun stories. And Melissa always classing up the place for us, making us look good. And everybody at home, stay tuned. We're going to do the free-for-all next. And I think that's about it. I think we covered everything of import. Thank you all so much. And always remember the 7th rule. Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the 7th rule. This is the free-for-all with Cirroc, Lofton, Melissa Longo, Rex A. Wood. Homer Frizzell, Commander Homer Frizzell, Dr. Marie Segal. How's everybody doing?
Fantastic.
Right.
Very nice.
Awesome.
Day 41 of the quarantine.
Yes.
Is that all it's been? Just 41 days?
I don't know what I don't know the number. I was just throwing it out there.
Oh, were you?
Yeah.
Feels like it's like 300.
Yeah.
So we just reviewed Jem'Hadar, the season finale. I know Marie Segal has some thoughts on that. Why?
Yeah.
One of the best episodes ever. Jake and Nog are so cute in it, and I think there's such, even though it's not as to be continued, there's such great continuity between that and the season opener. Then when I learned a couple weeks ago that it's the same director, Kim Friedman, I was like, oh, no wonder. Like, you definitely feel it.
Right.
And it's exciting. I love it.
Kim said that her least favorite shot that she's ever done in the history of television was in that episode.
Was it more and being like, Court, come back and talk to me?
No, but that was something that I didn't get to mention earlier was that was we got our very first taste of Morn going, and then I'll be right back.
Oh, I have a really fun fact about that really fast. Apparently, like in the German edition where they dub it instead of just subtitles, it's the only time Morn ever speaks. Like they actually have somebody dub for Morn like, wait, oh no, I guess you don't care or something like that.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, we gotta hear that. Homer, can you confirm this?
You need to ask him.
Not offhand, but I can find out.
We can ask Mark Allen Shepard, right?
True.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not him who did the dubbing.
But he's in Germany right now, so he's seen that episode in German.
Amazing.
Yeah, there's another episode, and I think this is the only one where he actually makes a noise that he does actually laugh. I don't know if we've gotten to it yet, though.
Really? Well, in this one, he did do a little he made a little noise.
We got our first Morn Eyes to commercial also.
No, there's a legit chuckle eventually.
Really? There's an actual sound that he makes?
Yeah.
Yeah, he went up, but I don't remember the chuckle.
No.
Yep. I will research that as well. I've got a lot of work to do.
You got a lot of homework.
Hey, because you know, I think they have to pay you differently as an actor if you actually have a speaking line, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So
we are joined by Yvette
words.
Blackmon as well. What's up, Yvette? We're talking about Morn. Sorry to interrupt you guys. We're talking about Morn.
Oh, great.
And how much of a chatterbox he is.
Yeah, and how he's talking everybody's ear off in this episode.
All the time. All the time.
Yeah.
You just never stop.
But apparently he has a lot of money to pay his bar tab because he's there all the time.
All the time.
Absolutely.
He's sitting there
again.
To have a bar, go to a bar.
Really?
Yeah.
So
I have a bar. It's not a,
Here's a fun question.
Home drinking is not fun.
By the way,
I went to Yvette drinking on Saturday nights at Lambda Quadrant parties. So sad.
Lambda Quadrant shout out there. Hey, also, by the way, Alan Oppenheimer, we were just talking about him. Anne Marie knows, he did the voiceover for tons of He-Man characters and
including
a bunch
Skeletor.
Skeletor, Man-at-Arms, Battle Cat.
Skeletor's the only one I know. No, stop.
Oh, come on. He also did a few Transformers. He did Vanity Smurf. He is, by the time this episode airs, he will have just turned 90 years old.
That's
April
amazing.
23rd, 2020. He'll be 90 years old and still acting. And we just saw him in this episode as Commander Keo.
Wow.
That's amazing.
Wow. And his hair was already all white back then.
Wow.
And that's all white.
Has he seen anybody? Because my 100-year-old great aunt is single.
Oh, okay. Playing matchmaker over here.
Yeah.
One final piece of info on him before I ask you guys a fun question is that he's also in Netflix's sequel to He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. They're coming out with the sequel at the end of this year, theoretically, to He-Man, but he's not playing any of the characters that he played before. He's not playing any of those characters we mentioned. He's playing Mossman, but that's because cool people like Mark Hamill is playing Skeletor, Stephen Root is playing Cringer, all kinds of people. Buffy
Who's
the
playing
Vampire.
He-Man?
No, but
Some guy I never heard of.
who was more impressive, Mark Hamill or the guy who played Tenectalon or whatever his name is?
Mark Hamill.
Jem'Hadar? No, I'm more impressed with it. I'm more impressed with the original Jem'Hadar.
Oh.
Not that guy in the main role.
So here's the
I'd
question.
be using my Skeletor voice every time I picked up on girls if I had Skeletor voice.
He-Man!
That was the Skeletor voice.
I think so. Is that what he sounds like? Right?
Yeah.
Dead on.
He-Man!
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I'm Skeletor. Yeah, that's it. I'm Skeletor. Yeah.
You
Homer,
look good there.
Can you do a Skeletor voice, Homer?
In the interest of time, I'm not going to.
Well, somebody needs to cast Rex.
See, Homer might want to run for office one day, and he does not want this on his resume.
Want that shown.
Nope.
A Skeletor voice to get out.
So here's a fun question. Today, and I think yesterday and before, by the time this airs, it'll be like a week old news, but they're talking about possibly recasting Q. I don't know if Star Trek is actually talking about it, but the nerds and the fans are. And Rosario Dawson has said that she would love to play Q. She was also theoretically who they modeled Michael Burnham after when they were writing Discovery. So the question is, which actor would you like to see play a new Q type character, whether it's just fully replacing John Delancey or whether it's just another Q? We're going to start Heather. Fine. I guess we'll start with Rex A. Wood.
Hold on. What does the A stand for? All these weeks I've been wondering, what does the A stand for?
Rex Allwood. No, it's Rex Andrew. It's Rex Andrew.
I wanted it to be Alan Oppenheimer Wood.
Yeah. Rex Wood.
Rex Andrew Wood.
And if my full name is Rexford, then I have to tell them.
Hey, wait a minute. Your initials spell out raw.
They do.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Raw
That's
is
awesome.
Rawr.
It's more like raw instead of rar. If it was rar, it'd be okay. But it's kind of like, you're raw. Yeah.
That's good for professional wrestling.
Gosh, you had to ask me first. You know what? I can't even think of anybody that I would put as Q. That's bad.
Anybody?
I'm trying to think because the problem is that it was played so well.
Right.
I can't really think of anybody. That's kind of stumping me right now. You may have to
Yvette has somebody. Yvette has
Yep,
somebody.
she's thinking. She's
I
sitting
can
on
see her. I can see her wheels turning.
Yeah.
I don't really like Q, but he's played brilliantly by John Delancey. So
Yeah.
I don't think you should mess with that.
I have a suggestion. I know I probably have the least knowledge of everybody here, but I thought of Q as being a real smart-ass, snarky type of character. And I think somebody that would be able to pull that off really well is James Woods.
Yeah. Okay.
That's a good one. Yeah. That's a good one.
Yeah, I think James Woods could pull off a Q.
What do you think, Homer?
Oh, I got one.
I think Ian McKellen.
Wow.
Oh my God, Patrick Stewart would love that.
Yes, you're so right.
Yeah, I think he'd be good.
Quit trying to get on Sir Patrick.
I just got one. Just got one. Dennis Leary. Leary.
Yeah.
You know, just because he would be another smart kind, but he would put a lot of humor into it, I think. Mm-hmm. And he would be kind of that dry humor that he does, you know? That would be one I would like to think.
That's a good one.
Mm-hmm.
What about you, Anne-Marie? Pressure's on.
You know that I'm a purist, and I'm going to say John Delancey because he's still a working actor, or Keegan Delancey, his son, Q2 Jr. Don't give me that face, Brian. It's not
Brian.
Not the Keegan. Yvette said no. I didn't like. Yvette didn't like that one.
No,
neither did Ryan. Not at all.
Not at all. No.
Ryan made his stink face.
He was terrible.
That's just me being French.
I actually didn't love Q episodes until Voyager, to be honest.
Okay.
Really for me.
All right.
Okay, Brian, who do you think?
Honestly, the first name that popped in my head was Chris Tucker. Because and it kind of sounds silly, but
you don't never touch a black man radio.
Yeah, but he's got range.
Right.
I mean, if you remember him and Jackie Brown.
Thinking about if he wasn't dead, Richard Pryor would be perfect.
Wow.
Right. Okay.
But Chris Tucker, that's good.
I mean,
or Eddie Murphy.
You saw him in Jackie Brown. You saw him in The Fifth Element. I mean, he's got range. So he can be Smokey, you know, or he could be the one that he did with Owen Wilson or Jackie Chan, right? The Jackie Chan one. Man, you ain't never touched Black Man Stereo, right? That's the one.
Yeah, that was Money Talks with Charlie Sheen.
Oh, it was Money Talks.
I think that was from Money Talks. Yeah, but he also did the Rush Hour.
Rush Hour. That's what I was thinking of. Yeah. So, Heather wants to come on. Well, we'll make her wait. So.
That's bad.
No, just kidding. Here she comes.
Worst doorman ever.
Doorman. Do you just call me the doorman?
Yeah.
Bouncer. Here now. Everybody go ahead.
Heather, Anne-Marie, when I told her that you were coming in, she called me the doorman.
Well, somebody didn't send me the link, so.
Ooh.
I did send you the link.
Oh, snap.
I think you forgot to send it again.
I did send it.
No, I had to get it from Homer.
Wow, right.
Wow.
Homer's fault.
It's Homer's fault.
Who did I send that to?
It's Homer's fault.
Who did I send that to? That means.
Well, Heather, what's your answer then, Heather? Since you can give us your answer.
Yeah, sorry about that.
My answer for
Heather.
what?
Go ahead.
Exactly. If you were here.
No, she's right. I sent it to someone else. She's off the hook. That was on me.
There are two things. You have to also do your Skeletor voice.
Yeah, I can hear your Skeletor.
Oh, yeah, to catch up, right. So you have to give us your Skeletor voice, and you have to say something about the episode we just saw, and you have to say who you want to be the new Q. Go ahead.
Yeah, I can't do Skeletor. I've never, ever seen, or I've never really, tried to do Skeletor. I'm a little behind, guys. I'm sorry.
Give her a chance to catch up.
That's my fault. Okay, we'll go to Melissa. Melissa?
Go ahead.
I was thinking John Delancey to play himself or David Tennant.
Oh,
Okay.
great. That'd be really fun.
Interesting.
I saw him walking down the street a couple months ago. And he looked super cute. Well, I was getting my nails done, but I couldn't run out and see him because they were drying.
Oh my God, you guys! I just thought of a good backup for Chris Tucker. I still stand behind Chris Tucker.
Okay.
Peter Dinklage.
Yep.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Homer likes that.
Yes.
I do.
Me and Yvette are thinking about who that is, and
I don't even know who that is.
Oh, it's Tyrion Lannister from Game of Thrones.
Oh, that's fun.
No.
He's adorable.
I don't know. As Q?
Yeah.
Or AQ.
AQ, not just.
AQ means Alpha Quadrant. Go ahead, Heather.
Oh, I thought you were talking
pumps
about
our gas at the Q station.
Tyrion Lannister. Oh yeah, he would be a good.
See?
Yeah,
I think he would be a good
He
kid.
would be the joke of the Q. I mean, why would he? No. Come on. I don't want to go there.
Come on, she said.
She doesn't even want that in the fantasy realm. Take it out.
Why would a Q be, small? Come on.
Well, he would do it to be deliberately, like.
I think he has the character. I think he has the personality and the character for it, though.
Like, I mean, Q. I wouldn't put it past Q to pull up that little like leprechaun, like elf little guy, like
Well, Peter Dinklage was also in. I can't remember what it was, but it was a movie like maybe 20 years ago where he was just like some kind of detective or something, and they never even mentioned it. It wasn't like a gimmick thing. He just went out, and I don't remember what it was. I can't remember the movie, but I just remember him being like this detective with like two cronies behind him, and they just never mentioned it. And I feel like he could, I mean, obviously Tyrion Lannister would be just so great, but he could make it a little bit more impish, I guess, a little bit more sly.
More impish?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, as in, like even more sly or even more jokester, because Tyrion kind of got less and less like that as the seasons progressed. But anyway, Heather, who do you think would be a good one?
I'm trying. I'm so like tied into, Q, like John Delancey, like he's.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say anybody but him.
To like think outside of that, and like I'm trying to pick somebody who I could see as Q, like somebody who's got that like mischievous, kind of like feel to them, and I'm trying to think of somebody other than what we know as Q. So it's a little hard right now.
Well, the reason we brought it up is because Rosario Dawson was saying she wanted to do it. Can you think of another lady that if they said we're going to do a female Q? Could you think of
I don't see her as a Q. I mean, no offense to her, but just personality-wise and from what I've seen, I don't see her having that same kind of Q-type mentality. Maybe she can pull it off, but I just don't see it.
She can be on something else.
Yeah, I could kind of see a female Q. Like, I could see the other side of it. And, John Delancey may be getting too old for Q. Like,
Whoa.
Whoa.
Q's don't age. Didn't we already, establish that?
He can age himself if he wants, like a genie.
I probably think it's hilarious to age along with Picard.
Yeah.
To make himself look old like Picard.
Yeah.
I could see that too.
He did that. In fact, he did it in All Good Things. I'm sure Melissa remembers this. In All Good Things, he said, "I'm sorry, what's your question?" He put like that ear thing to hear him better when Picard was too old. Damn it.
Look how ripped Nog looks in Ryan's background. Like,
because he is ripped.
They're like on the sleeves, they like come in like biceps and triceps. I'm really impressed.
Yeah, part of it is
that's the outfit.
But Aaron's arms have always been pretty ripped.
Yeah.
He had some pretty good arms.
I keep like staring at Ryan's picture, like no offense to Ryan's arms, but I just see Aaron's arms.
No offense to Ryan's arms, but Aaron had great arms.
None taken.
You really see off his physique what he put the K's on, because
right.
Yes,
yeah, that's true.
When he played Carr.
Yeah, I told Aaron
he
right
doesn't
away.
have sleeves in that one.
I did. I was like, yeah, that 13-year-old had some guns on him. All right, Aaron.
I think Renee could play Q too, though.
What?
I mean, Renee.
Yeah.
Mr. Auberjonois. I mean, he can do anything really, but I think he could pull it off.
So true.
How about
sure would have
Gene
had
Wilder?
fun.
How about Gene Wilder?
Gene Wilder.
With the hair and everything.
Mr. Willy Wonka.
Yeah, with the hair and everything.
Yeah.
He was totally a Willy Wonka type. I love that.
Yeah.
Setting up weird games for people that don't know what the end.
Well, who would be
point
the
is.
best girl Q though if we were gonna cast a female for the role?
Yvette, you've had plenty of time to think about it. We know John Delancey's number one. Do you have a number two, possibly female? She's John or bust.
No.
Not at all. Female? No. Whoopi would be a good Q.
Yeah.
We can't have Whoopi.
It's like such a cute.
Oh, I know, but I'm just saying she would be a good Q.
Yeah.
She could do it.
Mm-hmm.
I
Anybody
love
else?
her as like an adversary for Q when they do the like
but she's
weird
still-
like kung fu.
And who's
Oh,
the-
Q
fun.
versus Q.
Yeah,
Q versus Guinan is very fun to watch.
that's very fun. Yeah.
You know
Is
who,
that a real episode?
Yes. It's amazing and 10 forward. And like Whoopi does this weird like claw thing towards Q where she's like gets in like an offensive posture and Q's sort of scared of her. It's amazing.
we don't know her magic yet.
How about, and you guys are going to kill me because it's another Game of Thrones person, but the person that I think was the best actor I've seen in the last 5 or 10 years, honestly, is Lena Headey.
Be good.
That's Arya?
Nope.
No.
Or no, Cersei.
Yeah,
I love her. She is really fun.
she's definitely got the smirk.
She's
Yeah,
like
she
too
could do
like
Q.
calculated where I feel like Q's are like they don't have to be so calculated because they're just omnipotent. They don't really care as much. Whereas
Yeah.
she thinks a lot.
And
Rex is totally leaning in for a kiss right now.
What does Melissa think?
I was thinking, and I'm forgetting
Can't
her
resist it.
name, but she was on Game of Thrones, the one who killed Sadig's character.
Oh, the Sand Lady. Right.
Her name starts with a V, and I'm forgetting it.
Right.
She's a fantastic actress.
Mhm.
I think she could be a good Q. Because
She's
I've
a
seen her.
Yeah,
She was in the movie Kama Sutra, and
Yeah, she's super good.
You're
she
talking
like the
about the
early
one
Luther
that plays
also?
Ilaria Sand?
the one whose husband got killed by getting his eyes crushed by the mountain.
Who plays the Mandalorian?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
Ilaria.
Pedro Pascal. Yeah.
She's her name is I've got the character played by Indira Varma.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Varma
That's
has
Isn't she
to
like
be
in
you're
the
thinking
beginning
of.
of Luther? She's really good.
Yeah.
I was also kind of looking at female comedians, and I kind of like Whitney Cummings. She's
Interesting.
she's dark haired, but she's really funny, and I think she could pull off
She's
that
pretty
mischievous,
desperate for a
like
role, too.
cute thing.
Yeah, I was thinking of comedians too. Like,
Homer, your backdrop
little-
looks like the Light Speed and Fine Arts posters that they make. Is that related to it or no? That's something you pulled from somewhere else.
It may well be. I had to scramble to find something for today because I'm on a different computer.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So there's a. Yep.
You're still at home though, right?
I'm still at home. Yes.
Not Yvette. She's gone running.
Yeah.
I have my other group before this.
Yeah, I like the.
I don't even know how to change it, so I just left it.
That's perfect.
Oh, I thought it was a real sign that you made.
Yeah, we have our other group before this, so.
Anne-Marie, you thought she was just stretching, getting ready to go?
No, I thought she
I
made
went
a
running
voice on
already.
and put it in the background.
You went running today.
Yeah, pretty much every day.
Every day.
Wow.
We got to talk about some running. I missed the live show you guys did, and I caught it last week.
Okay.
And I didn't know you ran 10 miles. You do 10 miles a day, or?
Not every day. I do about 2 or 3 times a week.
Cool. I love 10 miles. My favorite.
I do about 7 to 10 miles.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good. That's good stuff right there. You can clear out all kinds of stuff with 7 to 10 miles. Nice.
Definitely clear out your head.
Yep. Okay. Especially during this nonsense.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, friends,
which I've seen a lot of
Okay,
people running lately
before
too.
we run,
Oh, speaking of running, yes, go ahead.
we just have to say, Malissa, I love your bracelet, and I hope you start selling them online soon because I'm wearing it like every day during quarantine.
Okay. Yes.
And it's so beautiful, and it says Deep Space Nine in binary code, and I love it. And it's very sparkly in real life, but you can't
Stop moving.
There you go.
Yeah,
Keep it still. There it is.
Melissa promised me a T-shirt, and she hasn't
and they're beautiful.
gotten around to that.
No, I haven't. I've been very busy here at home, but
we're waiting for that Etsy shop.
Yeah,
or
you just have to let us know when you have it.
By the end of the week, I plan on having something up.
Ooh.
Right. Well, that was a great shout out, Anne-Marie. Thanks. And thanks for
thank
Yvette for telling her to stop moving because we were trying to get a good look at that.
Yeah, sorry. I'm so excited when I'm wearing it.
Thanks, Russ. Right.
Great fangirls all the time.
So we got to run real quick, but thank you all so much for joining us, and for everybody at home, thank you guys very much. Great job, Homer, picking a super quick backdrop on your new computer. And Heather, we owe you one. Sorry about that. And by we, I mean me.
Some random person that you send Zoom is going to pop in.
I hope not. All right. Thank you all very much. And as always, remember the 7th rule.